Hello, I'm back with another episode of Fire and Flair. Happy 2023, everyone. I love that I get to start the new year off with this episode. So it's talking all about relationships, and today I have my neighbor and friend Therese on, and she is just literally sunshine in human form. She's great. We've really connected and clicked over these last couple months. We actually met at the pool. We live in the same apartment building, and we were introduced through a mutual friend. So it's been really great getting to know her. So she's here, and I thought she'd be a perfect person to have on. So I will go ahead and let her say hello.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and happy 2023.
Awesome. Well, great. So, yes, as I mentioned in this episode, we're going to be focusing on relationships because essentially, as you all know, I'm single. I've been single for a while, but I feel that there's probably 5 couples that I've met in the last couple years that really give me hope, where I find there's like a true match, a good marriage, what I aspire to have one day. And so I met Therese and her husband Joe, like I mentioned, at the pool, and just thought they were great. And I've gotten to hang out with them and see them interact, and they're just a really good example of what I hope to have one day. And it's funny because when I met you guys out that one day in October, it was your birthday weekend. My mom, I was at lunch with her, so she like walked me over and like called her Uber, but she met you guys briefly. And she was like, "Oh, I felt like such good energy from them. They seemed so nice." And so like my mom and I were all about like good vibes and energy, and I definitely trust her opinion when it comes to getting a read on people. I feel like moms just know, like they have that intuition. They can spot the good friends, or maybe they don't like your boyfriend so much, or they don't think he's the one that you're going to end up with. So I trust my mom's judgment, and she obviously reinforced what I already knew about you guys, but just overall really, really great people, such a lovely couple. And so I just wanted to have you on to really, I guess, talk about relationships and how you got to where you are today, and what happens when you actually find love and that it's possible, and then what happens after, like what happens after the fairy tale. So I'm excited to dive in, but I guess I'll start with.
And I do agree with you. Moms do know best, and so thank you for those compliments.
Yes, I will let her know that you said that. But I guess I want to start with you talking about like how you met Joe, like what your love story was, what happened before that, like your thoughts on dating and relationships. That's a lot of questions at once. So I guess we'll just start with like, what would you say your experience in your 20s was with dating?
Well, I was living back in the suburbs, and I had a handful of girlfriends that were living in the city, and I was living with them on the weekends, living vicariously through them, the city life on the weekends. So I had a handful of great, great friends that would let me crash and spend the night with them, and we would go out and from almost like Friday to Sunday and just have fun. If you could believe it, back in the day, brunch wasn't as popular as it is now. Maybe like I don't know, 5 to 10 years ago.
Right.
So we'd probably be brunching it by the time Sunday came around. I'd head back home. So yeah, your typical. I always was trying to look for Mr. Right and my Prince Charming, but little did I know guys in their mid-20s weren't really ready for that. They were still trying to find themselves too. They were still maturing, finding their career path, and probably just wanting to have fun. Um, so I was having fun as well, but still always trying to find my Mr. Right. Always had that in the back of my mind. Putting on my makeup, getting ready to go out. Oh, maybe I'll meet the one tonight. Most of the time, it didn't happen. So
Yeah.
met people, exchanged numbers, but that's not how I found my Prince Charming.
Yeah, I think that's very like I love that you're just very like truthful and authentic in what you're saying, because I think probably 99% of women in their 20s feel the same way. Like, it's just, I think women are mentally more mature, and naturally it's like we do want to settle down and start a family and get married and have the happily ever after. And so we do hope for that every time we get up and we get dressed and we get ready and we go out. Like, I find myself doing that too, like, who am I going to meet tonight? And I really try to not put the like pressure and expectations on. But it's hard when you're single, right? Like, because I feel like you're probably the same way. I mean, it's funny because your friend Reagan at the pool was like, Therese is like a Disney princess. It's so true. But I have this, for whatever reason, like, I keep thinking that my life is going to be like a rom com. And so it's like, okay, but am I already setting myself up for disappointment because I'm thinking I'm going to have this huge, elaborate fairy tale love story that's like a rom com, when that's probably not how it's going to happen. But we all secretly hope for it, right?
Yeah,
And so,
I totally did.
yeah, I remember talking to someone else on the podcast who said men in their 20s, they don't want to fall in love with you and get married. That's just not what they're looking to do at this age, unfortunately. And I definitely know that. Like, I've learned that. And I've seen some of my friends kind of go through this game or these tumultuous relationships, and everyone's just growing and trying to find themselves too, which is really hard, and like establish themselves, especially men in terms of their careers. Like, they want to feel at a certain point before they settle down. So it's really, I guess, trying to find the balance in the middle ground of meeting the right person at the right time, because that's really what it comes down to, I feel like. So
and I wish I would have known that. I'll just say it. I'm 36 right now. I didn't meet Joe till I was 29. So definitely, if I would have known all this information when I was 25, walking home for my 25th birthday crying because I thought I was going to be alone forever.
Aww.
If I would have known all this information, I would have just been out having a good time. Be like, I'll meet him later on in life. He'll come around.
Right. Yeah, but you know what? The important thing is, because you don't know what you don't know at the time, right? Like, hindsight's always 2020. But the fact that you had your 20s to learn and grow and figure out who you were, I think is great. Like, I think you met Joe at the perfect age, honestly, because you just were able to enjoy your single girl time and have fun. And that's like what I'm trying to do. I've kind of done my 20s backwards in a sense, which I'll get into, but I think it all just kind of happened the way it was supposed to for you. Like, it led to something great, and all the tears were worth it. It's funny because you were like, it like sticks with me, because you said, I remember at the pool one day over the summer, you're like, I just remember crying a lot in my 20s. And I'm like, it's not just me. Like, you know, it's like, was very validating, because I do. And like, some people don't understand, like, they just don't get it. And I think you and I we're just sweet. Like, we want the fairy tale love, and we don't understand why it's not happening when it's supposed to. Or, you know, we get, like, I think when bad things happen, it affects us more than the average person, you know? So it definitely sticks with me. I also cried on my 25th birthday. I don't know what it is about 25, because it's that turning point. It's like, you're no longer in your early 20s, and it's like something has to shift for you to kind of like mature and turn a corner, so that it's, I don't know, it's almost like you hit rock bottom and then there's nowhere to go but up.
That's true. Yep.
So
Absolutely.
if you don't mind me asking, what happened on your 25th birthday that just led you to tears and feeling like it was the end of the world?
Probably the alcohol. No.
That definitely doesn't help.
But it was where I was in a relationship for a while, and then I was out of a relationship, and then I was kind of seeing a guy, but I knew he wasn't the one, and my friend was with a guy who she really liked, and I had nobody, so it was just that, exactly how you put it. in what you said. Um, but looking back too, I did have a lot of girlfriends who were like, let's just enjoy this time now, because once we do find our significant other, our goals in life are just going to change and our priorities are going to change, because we're going to be, want to be prioritizing our new relationship and the family. But like in our, now that we have this time together, let's just embrace what we have, because one day it's all going to change and we won't have this girl time anymore. And it's true, it does happen that way, kind of. But if you continue to prioritize your girlfriends along with your significant other in your relationship, it'll still be a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. And hopefully it gives everyone hope out there. Definitely gives me hope. So I'm glad. I hope every birthday since your 25th has been much better.
Yes. Yeah.
We all have crappy birthdays here and there, but yeah, I can definitely relate to that because at 25, like I mentioned, I was living out of state. I was like, everything just happened at one time. I got into a car accident. I think it was a couple days later. Yeah, it was like a week after my birthday. I got into a car accident. I was super unhappy. Quit my job slash got let go. It was kind of a mutual thing. My relationship was not doing well, and so it's just weird to look back and see the person I was then and like how much, I'm sure even how much you feel like you grew from 25 to 29 when you met Joe. Like I feel like I've done so much growing in these last couple years than ever before. And I think it's also important for all the single ladies out there to remember that it's true. Like nothing lasts forever. Like enjoy the time that you have, enjoy the season of life, enjoy things for what they are, because if you're always like caught up in wishing to be in a different stage of life, then you're not actually enjoying your life. So you can't wait for your life to start. You just have to like make the best out of it, enjoy it for what it is. And sometimes it's just being able to go out with your girlfriends and have a good cry or watch a movie or, you know, just be out and laughing at dumb guys. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
But whatever fun looks like to you and what you do with your friends. So definitely that's an important part to highlight, because you're right. Like I think about that too. Like once I'm in a relationship, everything really does change. The dynamics with your friends and family, you don't see them as much, and now you have a new person. Or when you get married, you're now blending everything. Your priorities change. You are thinking about starting a family. Like it's so different. Your whole world gets turned upside down. And you don't ever have the same dynamic as you would before, like sleeping on your friend's couch and being able to like drink till God knows when, or you know, day drink and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's definitely important, and I have to remind myself of that too. Like, and age is just a number. Like I think people get really focused on the age and where they feel like they should be in life, and that like societal pressure. And I feel like social media absolutely doesn't help that. I think it's always been there. Like regardless of social media, I think any woman in their 20s, especially late 20s, feels that desire to feel like I should be meeting the one, I should be getting married, I should be having children, you know? And we do. We have a biological clock that we have to kind of adhere to in a sense. But one thing that I also admire about you and Joe is that like I feel like you guys are just doing your own thing. Like I feel like you don't give in to a lot of that, like what society or other people think we should do. Like you guys are married, but you're having fun in the city. Like you're just making life what you want it to be, and I think that that's how it should be.
Yeah, we definitely are. And kind of going back a little bit, I think as women too, we're trying to make these plans, we're trying to map out our life, because that's how women and girls are. We are planners, which is not a bad thing. But then when we can't plan for life circumstances, when we don't know who's going to walk in, what significant other is going to walk into our life, it's hard that we can't plan because we don't know when that's going to happen. And there's a quote from a movie. I know I'm not saying this right, but the quote is somewhere along the lines of, life is what happens while you're planning for it.
Yeah,
Something
yeah, I know
like
what you're talking
so
about.
it's
Yeah.
true. Like the old live in the moment kind of thing with your girlfriends, because one day it's all going to change. So yeah, my girlfriends are got married. Both my best friends got married maybe 1 or 2 years earlier than us, and most good handful of my best girlfriends do have children now. But Joe and I kind of did it backwards. We waited till we met each other to move down to the city. And now we're having all of our fun together, where most of my girlfriends did the opposite. They were living their single life in the city. Now that they met their significant other, they moved out to the suburbs, and
Yeah.
now most of them have children, which I love them all dearly. So yeah, I could give into society and the pressure of, okay, you guys have been married for 2 years now, like, when are you gonna have kids? And of course we get that question yet, but we're not ready yet. I mean, I'm so excited to have kids one day. I love kids, but my partner's also not ready to have kids yet, so I don't want to put pressure on either one of us if we're still enjoying literally our lives, what's happening right here, right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you're just being
Mm-hmm.
present and you're
Mm-hmm.
taking it day by day. And I definitely think it will happen for you guys when it's supposed to, and you'll both be on the same page because that's important. Like, you have to, especially when it comes to deciding when you want to have a family, like, both people have to be on the same page and support each other in that decision. So I think you guys are doing it right. And I know for you, so when you said you moved to the city 2 years ago.
2019,
Okay.
November 2019.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
COVID kind of took that time away. So
Yeah.
it's like you guys probably not until the last year have really been able to like enjoy city life together and get out of that COVID slump and just have
Mm-hmm.
fun with each other. And I think that also is important in a relationship. Like, if you become so focused on just, okay, we're married, we need a house, we need to have kids, like, just
Mm-hmm.
enjoy each other,
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the relationship, because as we just said, nothing lasts
Mm-hmm.
forever. Once you have kids, relationships for or marriages forever change. So
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you're both just having fun now, enjoying each other, is
Mm-hmm.
so important.
Yeah.
So I do want to ask, well, I know the question, but for everyone listening, because they're just going to die when they hear it, talk about how you and Joe met.
Yes. I was on Tinder for a couple months, meeting people, going on dates. I think the most dates I went on were like 3 dates in 1 week. And then decided it wasn't working for me. I'm going to get off the dating app and do me for a little bit. And then eventually ended up getting back on the dating app. It was the only dating app I ever did. I wanted to do something that didn't cost any money and it was a little bit lighthearted, but I took it seriously. Then, about a month or two after I got back on the dating app, I met Joe. And yeah, I was his first online date that he met up with and then met in person. So lucky for him, he didn't have to go
Right?
through all that.
Yeah,
Because dating takes a lot of mental and physical energy
it
to
really
find your
does.
right person.
Yeah.
So I was a little jealous. Wow, he didn't have to go through all that. And then eventually, probably like a year ago, I took long after we'd been married, I asked Joe, why was I your only online date? And he told me because nobody else responded. I was like, oh my
Aw.
goodness. But I don't know. I maybe girls just have a lot more options, and guys have to really put the effort in if they're actually going to take it seriously, taking the woman out on a date and treating
Yeah.
her and spending money on her. Um, yeah, I don't know.
I did want to bring that up, how you were Joe's first date, and because you guys met in 2015 when Tinder kind of reached its like
Yeah,
peak when it was
20
newer.
April 2016. Yeah,
Yeah, because that's
Bumble wasn't even around.
yeah, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is another couple, a really close friend of mine from college. She met her current husband on Tinder. So everyone loves an exception to the rule. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, it could give people hope. But I will say, like, the one caveat to that is with both couples, so you guys and then my other friends, is they met on Tinder before it really became known as like the hookup app or
Mm-hmm.
evolved into what it is today. People, I think, had better intentions and took it
Mm-hmm.
more seriously,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't abuse it the way that they do now. So,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I don't think the intentions are always the same as it
Mm-hmm.
was, but even still, I'm glad to see two beautiful relationships come out of that because
Mm-hmm.
dating apps and modern technology can help people meet. It
Mm-hmm.
just depends. And like going back to what you said about like how Joe maybe you were kind of the first person that like showed interest. I think that women like to be pursued more.
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to courting and
Yep.
relationships. And that's how it
Yep.
always was. Like, I wish that courting still kind of existed. Like, I think
Yep.
there's still like expectations or traditional standards where we as women, we want to be pursued, we want to be asked on a date, we want to be taken out, we want the man to pay for it. Like, all of that stuff I think is important when you're first dating and getting to know someone.
Right, I agree. That's why when I heard about Bumble and how some that the woman has to say something first, I said, I don't
Yeah,
know if I'd really like that because I want him to be more interested in me. And
right.
if he says something first, then I'll really know he's interested,
Yeah.
depending on what he says to me. But on my dating app on Tinder, I did write, I'm pretty sure I wrote this, looking for Mr. Right, not Mr. Right now, because that was just a nice, lighthearted way of saying, like, don't just, I'm not going to just be your
Yeah,
fuck buddy.
for sure. Well, good for you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's good to know what you want going into the app too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that you were able to like find a genuine person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes back to meeting the right person at the right time,
Mm-hmm.
and you both found each other and it worked, which
Mm-hmm.
is great. And there was something you said that I wanted to go back to. Shoot, I can't
I
remember what
could
it was.
say, while you're thinking about that, I could say that who I met was not who I thought I would end up with. I was living in the suburbs, and I always loved the city because I always visited girlfriends that lived in the city. And I thought, I want to meet somebody that lives in Chicago so that I can move to Chicago one day too. Well, I did the opposite of that. Joe's from Cherville, Munster, Indiana.
Yeah.
I never thought I would marry an Indiana boy.
Yeah.
But so who you think you're going to end up with doesn't always happen, but sometimes it works out for the best because when Joe and I did get engaged, then we moved to the city together and we were able to experience that on our own together for the first time. And who knows, maybe if I met somebody that was living in the city for like 10 years, maybe he'd already be ready to move out and just had to have enough of the city. So it actually worked out for the best.
Yeah, exactly. And see, that's the thing. It all kind of lines up the way it's supposed to. And we do have this picture in our mind of how we want it to go or how we think it's going to go. And even I've heard a lot of people who meet their soulmate or like their significant other, it's always someone different. Like, it's never the perfect person that you've always imagined yourself to be with. And I think there's something beautiful in that because it's so unexpected. And
Right.
I think it goes to show more that this person came to you for a reason. Like,
True.
because if we're so set on like this expectation in this picture in our mind and we're seeking it, then it's usually not always the best thing. But when it comes to us, because it's supposed to, and it's something out of the box and unexpected, it like makes it that much more like exciting. And I don't know the word how to explain it. Like, just
Yeah.
oh, I wish I had a word, but like
Well, I know what you mean because
serendipitous or
yeah,
something.
yeah. So in 2013, my dad passed away. I met Joe in 2016, and I went back on. The reason why I went back on is because my grandpa had just passed away, and I was feeling really sad, and I kind of just wanted a distraction. So after I did meet him and things were going well, I just had a feeling. Maybe this is true, maybe it's not, but I felt, wow, it was my dad and my grandma who passed away a few years ago, and then just my grandpa, so my dad's dad who had just passed. Wow, it took all those people to look out for me to help me find the right person because actually, in all the good ways, Joe does remind me of my dad.
Aww.
The outgoing, friendly, fun-loving person that he is, those are all qualities that my dad had. So.
That's awesome. I love that so much. And
Yeah.
I think you feel it in your heart and your intuition and everything that, like, yeah, the people that had passed were looking out for you. Like, it's almost like they were kind of there, like their guidance was there in the background, and they really wanted you to find the right person. And that goes back to, like, I tell myself rejection is redirection. Like,
True.
and in the moment it feels really hard and not good, and then like literally a month later I'll look back and be like, oh, so that's why that happened. Like, it actually was protection, or because I deserved better, or it wasn't right for me. So like like being able to look at it from that perspective has been really helpful, especially in terms of dating. And I'm sure you feel the same way. Like, once you met Joe, you're like, now I understand
Yes.
why everything else
Yes.
didn't work out and it happened the way that it did.
1,000%. I think that helps you stay not optimistic and positive and a good energy, because it is so true that rejection is redirection.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
And
Yeah.
I mean, did
love
you
that.
also feel that, like, I'm sure you had moments where you were very frustrated with dating, especially with the apps, like, where you were like, I made it this far, I'm not going to settle?
It was more of, how come the guys that I liked, they didn't like me, and the
Right.
guys that liked me, I didn't like, or just didn't. It was more of a chemistry thing, really.
Yeah.
Like, if you had chemistry with that person or not. So I, you take that to heart. Like, I really liked him. Why didn't he like me? What was wrong with me?
Mm-hmm.
But it just, like you said, it wasn't meant to be. It was supposed to redirect you to somebody else, because all the guys that I thought I liked that I went on dates with, it was nothing compared to Joe.
Exactly,
So.
because you wanted, like, you were being led to someone who was going to treat you like how you deserve to be treated and be your person and not give you the bare minimum. I mean, I don't know the guys you dated previously, but I feel like that's kind of what a lot of girls fall into when they, like, so badly want the guy to like them or they want to make it work. It's like they fall into this situationship where they're just receiving the bare minimum and they're trying so hard, and it should never be that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, not coming from like an entitled perspective or whatever, but there should be mutual respect, and you either feel that or you don't. And a lot of times we ignore it. We want to ignore it. We want to push it away. We want to ignore our intuition, but deep down we know when we are being treated the way we're supposed to be treated.
People always remember the way you make them feel.
Yes, I love that quote. I remember in college I read this quote and it said, how you make others feel says a lot about you. And it's true. And like, I'm always someone who, I mean, being empathic, as I've talked a lot about on this podcast, like, I'm always probably a little bit more concerned with other people's well-being than my own sometimes. It's always, is the other person comfortable, like, that sort of thing. Forgot where I was going with this, but
you're looking out for other people.
Yes, looking
and
out
that's
for
what makes you feel good, is when other people feel good.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how you make others feel is really important. So, like, I always want to leave someone feeling better than before. Like, I never want to make someone feel worse or have them think I have bad intentions. But unfortunately, not everyone is that way.
And that's a good quality that I've actually picked up on my husband. Little things that he's doing for other people, or even if we're just driving, he always lets the other person go first or stops for the people. Lets other people have the right of way. So I've gained patience from him in driving in other ways in life.
That's
and
funny.
Also the hospitality that he has when we have other people over, or the way he treats my friends. I've learned those good qualities from him, so I've become a better person through it sounds like exactly the kind of person you are too, making other people feel good about themselves and just in situations first makes you feel good.
Exactly. And I see that with you too, very much. Like, and that's really the kind of relationship you want, is when the other person brings out the best in you and not the opposite. And that's something that I've learned from my last relationship. Like, I feel like there was always that, like, tension that I couldn't explain. There was friction. It wasn't fluid. And I've seen the successful relationships in my life come when you can really, like, support each other. You bring out the best. It's a give and take. It's just that mutual support. You know what I mean? And so at least I know now, like, what it is I seek in my next relationship and how it should be. Because anyone I've talked to, like, I don't know, like, so my mom, for example, is one of those rare relationships where I feel like she's finally met her person and she just says it's easy. Like, and I'm sure that you can say the same thing about you and Joe. Like, and that's how it should be. It's a partnership. Not easy all the time, obviously, because no relationship is, but, you know, more often than not, it should just be, like, harmonious, essentially. You know what I mean? Like, the other person bringing out the best in you and not the opposite.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and do you find that, like, you have that with him versus your other relationships?
Yes. The biggest thing was probably the fights with past relationships. Like, you don't have you don't have to do all that fighting. And if you're fighting, it's only going to get worse from there. So we didn't have our first fight probably until we got in, after we were engaged and after we were moved in together. It was like the first time we ever fought about anything, because it
Wow.
was just, you're living with the person for the first time,
Right.
and
It's
you're just
bound to happen.
figuring each other out. But they were stupid little fights. So if you're in a relationship and you're fighting, or it doesn't feel right, or it's like more hard work to be happy, it's not right.
So true. And yeah, that's how I felt in my last relationship. Like it was like going against the tide instead of like
Mm-hmm.
swimming with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I didn't always feel that way. Like my last relationship was 5 years, and the first half of it was very easy. I think a lot of that's the honeymoon stage.
Mm-hmm.
We were also very, very young. We met at 20 years old. We are still basically children. And then when it came time to kind of grow up, like I didn't have that support. We didn't know who we were. We wanted different things. Like there was so much that went into it, but all I can explain it as is just like pulling teeth sometimes. Like, and the thing too that like I find with so many people is like you want it to be this person, you want to make it work so bad to the point where you just like at some point you just have to say enough is enough. Like I can't give any more of myself. There's nothing else I can do. There's nothing more I can change. It's just not meant to be. And that's the hardest part is accepting that. But I know like going forward in my next relationship and having good examples of what a relationship should look like I definitely am like, okay, I want to like have it be harmonious. I want to have like a good balance and just have that support,
Mm-hmm.
like that's what it should feel like.
And a lot of times people stay in those relationships because it's scarier to be alone than it is to be with the familiarity of being with somebody and just having those fights. Being alone is hard because you have to work that much harder to just make yourself happy. So I feel like that's why people stay in not good relationships longer, because it's familiar and it's easier.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easier to stay than it is to go, and especially when you've invested so much time, you don't want to get back in the dating game. You're scared that you're not going to meet someone as great, or you think nothing else out there could be better. Like, there's so many fears and thoughts running through your mind. Like, I knew if Tim and I ever broke up, like, I didn't want to be on apps. I didn't want to be in the dating game because it would be terrible. And I wasn't wrong. Like, I don't really enjoy dating, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, but
Yeah.
I know it had to happen for like a higher purpose and for my growth and to
Mm-hmm.
find the right person. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we can't control things in life, like, they just happen the way that they do. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's not always ideal, but I do know in my heart of hearts that it's for a reason and it'll all lead to good things. But
Mm-hmm.
absolutely 100% agree with you that unfortunately a lot of people settle and they stay because it's just easier to do so sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how long were you single before you met Joe?
Um, Probably like 24 to 29. I
Okay.
had I had somewhere in between somebody who I was seeing, but it was never labeled a relationship or a boyfriend.
Yeah.
Um,
You were dating, but it just wasn't like a
yeah, so
serious
maybe somewhere like
relationship.
a year in there. So yeah, a good from like maybe 26 to 29,
Yeah.
like definitely single.
Okay. And I think those are still good years to have that, even though
Mm-hmm.
it's like for me, it's kind of been the opposite where everyone I know between 25 and 30 is like getting married and having kids and doing all that. And like I've really learned to just accept my timeline for what it is and not compare. And so it's nice to meet someone who like had a similar situation. Like, okay, I'm not the only one. Okay, so something that I wanted to touch on. So we actually started talking about it before we recorded, and I was like, no, wait, we can't talk anymore because it's really good material for the podcast. So I know you said in your 20s, because you're how old, if you don't mind me
36
asking?
right now.
36. Okay, so it's like a 7 year age difference between us. And so you kind of experienced the city. I mean, it was less than 10 years ago, but things changed so much. And I think COVID really propelled things in certain directions. So, like, you are seeing kind of when you're out and about, even though you're married, like, it's a different especially with Gen Z, like becoming way more into like the bar scene now. Like that's the generation that's in their early 20s and going out, and even like some quote unquote millennials. Like I'm in my late 20s, so I'm a millennial, but that whole generation, like we're seeing there's a spectrum, right? And so for you, like when you're out now in the city, even though you're married, you're like, oh shit, if I was single, this is what I'd be experiencing. This is what this looks like now when it comes to girls and being single, or just how men and women interact with each other. And so we kind of said how, like, I especially feel it now being single. Like, there's so much pressure. Like, I struggle with comparison. And so it's like nowadays, especially with Instagram, it's like in the last 5 years, this whole thing has really taken off with like Botox and fillers and the long nails and the lash extensions and the hair extensions. And it's like you were saying how that really wasn't around that much when you were out on the town in your single days.
Yeah, I would only put fake eyelashes on for my dance recitals, and that was about it. And nobody talked about Botox or fillers. That wasn't even a thing at all. That was only within the last like 3 years. So yeah, even as just a woman and a girl going out in the city and just being like, oh, just gonna go out with my girlfriends for a couple of drinks, I look around and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could never compete like physically with any of these girls right now, because they
Right.
are just look like they put so much. They're beautiful, but they probably put so much effort into how they look right now, so that it would be really hard.
Yeah, exactly. That's like absolutely 100% how I feel, especially when a lot of times when I go out and I go to bars, I'm one of the older ones. And luckily for me, like I blend in where I don't look my age, so it's easier for me to get away with it. But mentally, I'm older than 29. Like I would say I'm probably like 40 mentally. So it's like to be physically looking like you're 22, but mentally like you're 40, it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
find that balance, like when I go
Mm-hmm.
out and to not compare myself. Like
Mm-hmm.
so I have to tell you, earlier this week I was running errands and my mom gave me scratch offs for Christmas. So I won like $9 off of them.
Woohoo!
I know, I'm $9 richer. I went to the gas station and I'm like how I am now, like hairs in a ponytail, no makeup, casual. So I walk in and I go up to the counter and I'm like, oh, I have a couple dollars that I won off these lottery tickets. And the guy literally looks at me and he's like, are you old enough? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, sometimes kids try to like cash these for their parents. And I'm like, you don't think I look old enough to buy lottery tickets? And he was like, no, you look 16. And I'm like, sir, I'm literally going to be 29 years old next week. Like, what do you mean I don't look old enough to buy lottery tickets? That's absurd. That's asinine. Like, again, it's like, I know in hindsight it's like a compliment, but I'm like, what does that say if like I look 16 dressed down? I probably look like with makeup and when I'm all dolled up, probably 23, 24 at the
Mm-hmm.
most. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard, like to be in a space where everyone in like my cohort is doing the opposite of what I'm doing. It's like they're
Mm-hmm.
getting married, they're having children, and so I have to like play the game of trying to look my best and like be out and be single and compete with Gen Z. Not that it's a competition. I shouldn't even say compete, but it's like I don't know what's in the water, but like girls just look way different than they did back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't
Even
know
what
what
they're
it is.
wearing, like from everywhere, from the hair, the makeup, the eyelashes, the lip
Literally,
injections,
they're all
the boobs
tall,
out,
skinny. They look
the
like
crop
models.
tops.
They're wearing crop tops. They
Yeah.
look so fashionable. They have high cheekbones. I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like they just like exploded with all these
Mm-hmm.
like attractive girls. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone also kind of has the same look though in a sense, which I
Yeah.
find interesting.
Yeah.
It's like that Instagram model type look that
Yeah.
everyone's trying to have, but very much like the
Mm-hmm.
Botox, the fillers, all of these like the makeup, the
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, it's just like it's so much and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to not feel like getting lost in it and trying to like stand out and not feel like because here's the thing too, like when I go out, I feel like the ratio of beautiful women to eligible bachelors or even attractive men is just simply unfair. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced that there are no eligible bachelors in Chicago, honestly. And I go all over the city. Like we live in one of the best neighborhoods,
Mm-hmm.
so many restaurants, so
Mm-hmm.
many bars. Like I genuinely
West
feel like
Loop, what?
yes,
Just gotta give a
represent.
shout out for West Loop.
Yeah, I'm obsessed. I feel very spoiled living where I do, but it's like even when I go out in our neighborhood or to bars, Old Town, it doesn't matter. I feel like I just am not. I'm telling you, like, either the universe is hiding men from me on purpose because it wants me to focus on other things, or Chicago just does not have eligible bachelors. They've all moved away because I'm convinced that, again, the ratio is not fair. There are way too many attractive women compared to the amount of attractive men here. I
And
don't get it.
it could come full circle is because what do girls do when they're in their mid 20s? They're trying to find a man. They're trying like we're out mostly out with our girlfriends, but we're also trying to find somebody. So of course they're gonna like peacock out and do
Right.
their hair and do their makeup and look their best. And these dudes that are like the same age in their 20s as well, they're probably out at some like local bar just getting beers for as cheap as you can get them and just laying back, shooting pool, throwing darts. And so I think the 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 look of the women that where we live around, it probably has to do also with where we live as well. Maybe
Yeah.
compared to like maybe some suburbs or maybe different like parts of town or different, just across the border in Indiana.
Yeah. That's a
Um,
good point. I mean,
yeah,
it's so different being in
but
the
it
suburbs
is
and
in our
then
face because we are right here. So I know exactly what you're saying. And when you were saying like competing, you're like, I'm not trying to compete with anybody, but I even feel like that. I'm not even single, and I feel like Jesus, how am I going to compete with like these women? And I'm not even trying to find anybody.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's hard not to, honestly. Like, and it's something that I really need to work on. And we do have to remember, like, first of all, we live in the third largest city in the country, so any big city is typically going to attract your really successful, attractive individuals, right? Like LA, New York, Chicago, Miami. Like, there just is more of a plethora of attractive people. So that's number one. Number two, like you said, a lot of them are single. They're trying to look their best. They're all young in their 20s. They're in their prime. That's another thing to consider. There's so many different factors. But yeah, I mean, city life is certainly different than being in the suburbs. That is for sure. And so I've been here, living here almost a year, but it's kind of taken me a minute to, like, even the style is different. Like, there's a very particular style that a lot of city girls have versus if you just are in the suburbs or out and about in other places. And so, again, it's like trying to keep up with this look and I don't know, like you said, it's just changed a lot. Like it's in the way that, well, and then it also makes me feel like the bar is so high that men just expect that like a gorgeous woman is gonna fall at their feet because they know they're out there and they can do it. And so I don't know, it's just really feels like set up for a not fair game or something.
Hmm. Yeah, I
But
agree.
but I definitely wanted to bring that up because it's something that's real that I experienced that I don't know, like I guess my last question for you, like when you were out and about and you were single, the style changed, the beauty standards changed were different, but like did you still feel that same like uh, pressure to like be attractive and stand out like you see girls do now?
Yes, but not like it is nowadays. I feel like, yeah, it's definitely changed. And you're right. I think it's Instagram because I don't think there was, when did Instagram become popular?
Instagram was not what it was like even less than 10 years ago, like 2015, 2016. Like
Yeah,
it's changed just immensely.
yeah.
Like,
So you're trying to always one up the next
yes,
girl or the next
almost
person or
scary.
the
Like,
next look or the next beauty.
there's like a whole aesthetic specifically for city women, women that live in the city that's generated from Instagram that I even see, like looking on reels. Like, it's a very specific style. It's called like the girl. Like, this is a whole other topic that I can dive into that I want to at some point,
Hmm.
but it definitely does not make it easier when it comes to dating, feeling like you need to portray this certain like image and yeah, just how Instagram has really impacted the way that women present themselves and like you said peacock in a sense when they're out. So
Hmm. Yeah.
I
Ooh, yeah. We could definitely dive into all that.
want
'Cause
to.
remember back in the day, it was all like, oh, let's change the Victoria's Secret models to like plus size models. Like, I thought we were going down a certain route, and then all of a sudden it changed to like Instagram
Yes.
models.
And I hate that
So-
like the term Instagram model even exists. It's funny because I've actually been binge watching America's Next Top Model this whole week while I've been off work. Have you watched any episodes?
Back in the day.
Yeah.
Is it still on?
No, they're not
Okay.
airing new seasons,
Okay.
but I love the older seasons, and so it's like there actually was so much that went into being a model, and it's like now like an attractive woman that can just post a picture with all this filler and like filters and like be considered a model, and like I don't really think that's fair. I think it's taking away from like models who've built their career on so much more, but again, now I'm gonna get on my soapbox. So I'd rather not, but definitely, because I did have an episode on social media and how toxic it is, but it's like I just see so many people fall into that trap. Like I've actually deleted Instagram off my phone this week, which has been great. My productivity level so much higher. I just feel better. But it's interesting how it's like impacted modern dating, I suppose.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Along with back in just online dating, because I started dating back in the day where online dating wasn't the norm. So you'd have to go up to people at bars and approach them and talk to them. But then I went from that to the stages and years that I was dating to all of a sudden online dating became so popular, and I stopped seeing people talk to people at bars and feel comfortable to approach people at bars, because that became like the weird thing to do, where back in the day the weird, quote unquote weird thing to do was online dates. So dating has totally changed.
Oh, can I tell you, like, first of all, being an old soul and just never jiving with social media in general, like, is my own personal hell. Like, I'm like, why was I put in this place to reject like normal societal things, but then have to suffer the consequences of it? Like, it's very difficult. Like, I literally am just at a point where I think that Prince Charming's just gonna be delivered to my doorstep. Like, that's
Amazon, let's go. Find him on Amazon.
Exactly.
Just like everything else.
I want nothing to do with apps. I want nothing to do with modern dating. It's such slim pickings, or like a needle in a haystack when you go out approaching someone or having them approach you. And like, I wish it wasn't that way. Like, because it's interesting. I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about dating apps, and they did a survey, and it was like majority, like 86% of people said they'd rather meet like other people in person in the wild rather than an app. So it's like, why do we revert to the apps and not put ourselves out there if we're really yearning for that like social in-person interaction? Like, especially with COVID. Like, I honestly, like, this episode has given me an idea of how social media, like Instagram and dating apps alone, have impacted modern dating in the last, like, I did touch on this briefly, but I want to like dive into it more 2 years after COVID. Like, I just think between COVID, dating apps, and Instagram, it's literally snowballed into this whole other thing that's just it's just, to me, it's like trash. It's negative energy, and we all claim that we want to go back to the old-fashioned meeting people in person, but we're not actually willing to put ourselves out there and do the work.
Yeah, and I think it's technology. Technology makes everything easier. Just like back in the day, we had to print out our MapQuest or Google Maps, print it out on paper, but now we just have it in the palm of our hands, technology on our phone, where same thing with dating. I don't have to approach that person face to face. I can just pull them up on my phone. So just like the easiness of having it on your phone, the simplicity.
Well, it's ironic that I feel like you're someone that would embody like the what do you call it? Like very traditional courtship, meeting someone in person, but you happen to meet your significant other on an app.
Yeah.
But again, it's like you weren't expecting that to happen, and you were just going with the flow and whatever.
I tried to meet him the old-fashioned way. It just didn't work out that way.
Right. Well, like I said, I love the exception. I love to see a great love story come, even if it's from the app. So definitely harder these days, but I don't know. We'll see. You've definitely given me more to like think on and have future episodes, but definitely had to touch on this piece. And so it I
definitely.
guess gives me also validation in knowing it wasn't always this way. Things have
Mhm.
definitely changed. It's only
Mhm.
getting harder.
Yeah.
So
And not even within the last 10 years. I feel like I've only been known Joe for the last 6 years. So, like, less
five,
than 10 years,
like literally
I've seen it
5 years.
change. It's wild.
It's like in 5 years we've experienced enough change and shift in cultural norms that really would have taken 15 to 20 like
Mhm.
before. Like it's just
Mhm.
insane. So
Yeah.
it's crazy, but I guess
Mm.
we'll end that little segment there. Like sometimes I wish I had a couple more single girlfriends or like a group like Sex in the City, like just
Mhm.
four friends like doing their thing. And she's like, yeah, she's like, I understand that. Like, I went through a period of like feeling frustrations being single, but she's like, how many single friends do you actually need? She's like, I think one or two is good for you. And she's like, you have a busy social life and you have a lot of friends. So, like, how many more friends do you need? Do you even have time for more friends? And she kind of brought up a good point because I love my social life and that I have a lot of friends, but I do find sometimes that I don't have enough time for myself. So it was like I kind of had to take a step back and be like, yeah, she's right. One or two is probably fine. To think that my life is going to be Sex in the City and I'm going to meet all these single girls is a little unrealistic. Um, but I do just, I guess, wish that I had that group dynamic.
Mhm.
Like there's a little bit more of it sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. And your therapist is right in terms of you really only need a good handful of really close girlfriends that I've learned because I'm more the person that I don't have a crazy amount of girlfriends, but I do have the girlfriends that I do have. We're really super close and tight knit. And the fact that you said, I wish I had a lot of friends that were in the same stage of life as me in terms of single girlfriends, it's interesting because I also kind of feel that way where I wish I had some more girlfriends that were in the same stage of life as me because a lot of my best friends already have built families and have children. So I wish I had more like girlfriends without kids that I can go out with and have fun with. Um, but I still get to see them when they get their babysitters, and they have wonderful husbands that will also babysit for them and everything. But I know exactly what you mean because
Yeah.
I'm that way, but married and wish I had friends without
For
kids.
sure. It's really hard to like some people get lucky and I've met people where it's like everything happens at once. All their friends get married when they get married, all their friends have kids when they have kids, and that's great. Like that's awesome. It works out that way for some people, and for other friends it's like all of your friends are in different stages of life, and that's kind of how I am. I
Mm-hmm.
have like one good friend that's single, thank God. And then I have other friends in a lot of my other friends are in relationships, and then I have a couple that are like married and trying to like have a family. So it's all over the
Mm-hmm.
map, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Which is fine. Like
Yeah.
it goes back to me just like accepting what is in the
Mm-hmm.
season of life. And
Yeah.
I think like the universe kind of isolates us sometimes for a reason, or like in your case it's like
Mm-hmm.
you and Joe get your city adventure now. Like
Mm-hmm.
you get to experience the city like being married, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
really cool because
Mm-hmm.
not everyone gets to do that, and you're going to look
Mm-hmm.
back and you're going to have those memories, and you're going to know that everything you did was on your timeline because you set your life up the way that you wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what other people were doing, what society said. Like it
Mm-hmm.
all makes it work out so much better. And
Mm-hmm.
like also when you force something, a lot of times you're going to face resistance. Like
Yeah.
and I feel that very much. Like I feel like a lot of times things that are meant for me will just flow, and I'll know, okay, this is right, this is the direction I'm meant to move in. If I face too much resistance, then I
Mm-hmm.
know, okay, it's time to reevaluate and like pivot and
Mm-hmm.
figure out the right direction. So, the reason I brought up like me talking to my therapist is because you said something about like, when you're with your single friends, are you really going out to have fun and be single, or are you in the back of your mind, it's always we're all trying to meet someone. And I think for men, it's always they're really going out to be single and to have fun. And a lot of times for women, it's like, yes, you're out with your single girlfriends, but there's always someone crying about a guy or talking to a guy when they're out or in a situationship or leaving to go hook up with somebody. And like we've all been that
That's
girl or
true.
been in different phases of those. But yes, I feel with women there's definitely a difference in how they operate going out with girlfriends than with men.
Yeah. Holy cow, that's so true. Yeah. Been in those situations where the one girl just is you don't see that friend for the rest of the whole entire evening because she met a guy and she's more
Literally.
focused on him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or someone ends up upset about a guy,
Yeah.
or you just never know, right?
That's
But
true.
there's always
It's a lot
something
of
going
emotion.
on. Yeah, exactly. Always some sort of emotional thing happening, and guys are just la di da, like so drunk. I'm having a
Who's
grand
gonna
old
get
time.
the next round of beers?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that's all they're worried about.
And if they're talking to a girl, great, but it's not like there's all this.
That's not their focus.
Like it's not heavy. Like it's not the same as with women, and sometimes I truly am like, let me just reincarnate as a man in my next life because I really think it's so much easier.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the mentality that I've been embracing. I think I've been a lot in my masculine energy, just with like, I'm obviously very independent and I'm single and I'm trying to really embody that and be carefree the way that men are and not like, I don't know how to explain it.
And maybe it's like the history of courting, like they kind of take the reins and approach it, being the first to approach to women, and we're kind of just like sitting back, just waiting for it to happen. But like they're the ones in charge of like how they want their evening to go, where we're just kind of open to anything and everything.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. Like, yeah,
just the history of how dating has been for centuries.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and you bring up something else too that I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I've asked all of my friends in relationships. Well, I'm very analytical by nature, and especially with the podcast, I don't necessarily, it's not like research, but it's kind of my own research in a sense. So a lot of my friends I asked in relationships, I was like, so who made the first move? Was it the guy or the girl? And 99% of the time, to my surprise, it was the woman had to show some sort of interest first or make a move so that the guy knew it was then okay to like proceed and maybe court or like follow the lead. But if they don't feel that like they're okay to do that, like I don't know, it's like dating's like this weird game, or like I don't want to say game, like it shouldn't be like.
On the head, because I have an example from Joe and I.
Okay, go ahead.
We were on literally our first date, and he brought up the subject that I was super interested in, and we were in a wraparound booth, so like kind of same side of the boothers, but it was like a horseshoe booth. So he brought up a subject that I was super interested in, and I literally turned my whole entire body over to look at him and kind of like sat sideways on the booth so that my full body could face him. And he's like, wow, right then and there, I knew you were like interested in me just by my body language and exactly what you said. Like, we have to do something to make the guy know that, yes, we're interested, and then they can take the lead more on courting us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's so interesting because you didn't even say anything or had to do anything that was body super language. Flirtatious or like aggressive. Like it literally. Yeah, and it's true. Like they said that we say more in our body language than we do with actual words, like 70%. And it's also, again, it goes back to like the vibes that you're picking up from somebody, and if it's mutual, and if they're like they say like. Yes, if your entire body is facing the other person straight on, if there's eye contact, like that's how you really know that there's like interest there.
Yeah, because that's literally what I did. And it wasn't even anything sexual or flirty or anything. He was telling me the fact that his dad is a mortician, and I was wow, I've never met anybody or talked to anybody in that field. And I was, me being a biology major and in the healthcare field and know a lot about anatomy and physiology, I just wanted to hear more about that. So he was an embalmer, and I just turned. I was like, tell me more. It's just kind of morbid, but I just wanted to know all about it. So yeah.
Well, and I've read too, like when it comes to being on a date, like when someone is genuinely engaged and interested in what you're saying, it comes across as very attractive. Like you have their full attention, they're listening to you, like they care, they're engrossed in what you're saying. So yeah, it totally makes sense. I just love that it was something so subtle, and he probably right then was like, oh, I'm in love, like she's the one.
Or like just he probably didn't even realize at the time, but just the fact that I showed so much interest in him and what he had to say. So, and girls are having a hard time meeting guys or like meeting people or finding the connections. Like just open yourself up a little bit more and like show interest, even though maybe you've been burned and hurt so many times, time and time again. Like there's gonna be that nice right guy out there. So just don't shut yourself down and allow yourself to be vulnerable because yes, maybe things might not go the right way. Maybe you might get hurt again, but would you say is redirection?
Rejection is redirection.
Exactly. So, it might happen here and there. But if you just continue to make yourself vulnerable, you're going to learn from every situation you come across, good or bad. So, yeah.
That's true too. Like, not every date you meet is necessarily going to be with the one, but it gives us good just experience meeting new people. It's good to network. You could always meet the one through someone you went on a date with, perhaps. I've heard stories of that happening. It gives you, one, it's practice if you're a little bit more shy or you just need that experience and exposure, and also can help you understand what it is you're looking for in a person versus not, like how you enjoy your time with somebody. So, as someone I know always says, nothing is for naught. So even if it's not the best date or it's bad, like I still think you can always like take something away from it and it serves its purpose. And then something I wanted to note, like as you were talking, was, when you were saying, especially with women, like it's hard to want to keep dating when you have been burned in so many situations and you're feeling disheartened and just like it will never happen. That's kind of when I think it's good to also take a step back and focus on you, because like when you're just, again, it goes back to that resistance. If you're facing resistance, a lot of times it's for a reason. But like, so whenever I've been on apps, like I see this for men and women, they'll put in their bio like, not, don't waste my time, not looking for a hookup, if you don't do X, Y, and Z. And like I had a podcast episode on, so I feel like I've had different iterations of like podcast episodes on dating and relationships. The very first one I did was on modern dating almost 2 years ago, April of 2021. So that focused a lot on like dating apps and like courting.
Fresh right there. April 20. Wait, oh, you said 2021.
Yeah. And then I had one in April of 2022. So earlier this year, that focused mainly on being single, the pros and the cons. This one's like on relationships specifically, but talking to you about what happens when you find a successful one, which again, we'll get more into that. But of course, we can't help but talk about dating nuances, right, that come with leading to meeting the right person and what you have to go through. And so again, I think attitude's really important, because like for people that are on apps where they're like so abrasive, like I said, it's such a turn off to read, like people that are like, not sure why I'm even on this app, it's probably a waste of time,
Negative.
We'll probably delete later. Like it's like you can't say those things and like think that's going to be attractive, because then it just doesn't paint you in a good light. It makes you wonder why you're on here. You just have a negative attitude. Like everything about it just screams.
Really people that say that?
Oh yeah,
holy cow.
Definitely. Or like it's like, if you don't check this, and this on my box, or you don't have this, don't even bother. Don't waste my time. Like yeah, people are just like really out there with
Even
what
if
they're
they
putting
do,
out.
I would girls respond to that with that negative energy.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it reads to me immediately. It's just negative energy, bad attitude. Clearly you've been screwed over. We all have, but you can't like put that out there and make that like essentially your brand, or like the first thing that people see. Like it's just, it's not a good look, and it's not going to generate or attract the people you want. It's not good for you. And to me, that also says there's more internal work that needs to be done.
Definitely.
Because it's just, I don't know. I think with dating in general, like you really have to go into it with an open mind. You have to let go of the pressure and the expectations. That's definitely something that I've had to learn, like not only with dating, but just across the board. And it's funny because I feel like at least once a week I get a question about my dating life. Are you seeing anyone? Like, how are things going? Like, blah, blah, blah. It'll be from a coworker, a friend, a family member, even my therapist asked me, and I'm like, I've got nothing, guys. Like, I don't care. It's on a shelf. It's not, like, I'm not paying attention to it. Like, I've dated casually, but, like, for me, there's so many other things I want to focus on, and there's still so much, like, internal work that I feel like I have to do, and, like, I don't know if this was the same for you when you were single. It was, like, yes, like, a big part of me wants to meet the right one, but it's, like, I almost feel like I can't even fathom what that would be like, because I want to make sure that I'm in a good place when that happens. Like, I want to feel fully secure in who I am so that I can give my best to someone else.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I think that's important to focus on yourself first and make yourself be the best version you can be, because how are you going to make somebody else happy if you're not happy? Of course, you hear that a lot, but we really don't even realize that. How are you going to make somebody else happy if you can't even be happy yet? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's like, would you say, like, in your time of being single, did you have like growth and you learned about yourself and then it all just kind of fell into place? Like, I don't know,
Yeah,
what was that experience like?
yeah, definitely. Well, I guess in my single time, I was happy to be around and at home. Like I said, I always want to live at home or live in the city on my own. But when you talk about everything happens for a reason, I was around because I lost my dad in 2013. I met Joe in 2016. So the fact that I was around a lot, I wasn't trying to like go spend weekends with my boyfriend. I was home to spend family time and help out at home. It was meant to be. So I was just, growth wise, yes, because I was meant to be at home with my family, helping first, yeah, out dating. And I spent that time, that was my years that I was spent the most time with girlfriends. So girls that I knew loved me for me and were supportive, who were there for me through all those hard times and like helped pick me up when I was feeling down. Maybe that was some of the reasons why I cried a lot when I was younger. You know, like kids go through a lot of different things. And we go through a lot of different things in life, you know, not only like maybe death of a parent, but divorces too, are challenging.
It's like really interesting to me because probably you didn't even realize it at the time, but going through something like that, it just immediately makes you stronger and it makes you kind of reevaluate things in your life and think about what's actually important and just spending time with people you love. And I also think that's probably why it led you to Joe's, because at that point it was like you had been through shitty dates and guys, and you know, you lost your dad, and it's like at that point you don't really have the capacity to deal with just more heartache and like negative energy and people who like aren't for your best good. And you probably knew when you met Joe, like it just felt good and it felt right. And so I like that a lot. And that's what I tell myself too. Like, you know, my last relationship, as you know, was pretty traumatic. So I definitely have needed time to grieve the relationship and the person. And I know that at the end of the day, it's made me stronger and it will lead me to the right person. And I do feel that Tim is with me in a lot of ways and he's looking out for me and he's going to help me find that right person.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And looking back, just a couple of days after my dad passed, I turned to like that group of girlfriends that lived in the city that I had been like traveling to see, like a good handful of girlfriends. And then at first I felt guilty as, oh my gosh, why am I going out in the city and like having like trying to have fun with my girlfriends after my dad just passed. But like I needed that love and support from my girlfriends, which they gave to me. And I can vividly remember like that night out that I spent with like a handful of close girls. So you do need that love and support from your girlfriends, because my mom, who has a handful of girlfriends. So obviously my mom is a widow, and one of her best friends is a divorcee. So she got a card one time. Pick good girlfriends because one day they'll outlast your husbands, which is true.
That's
like
funny.
in her circumstance and her friend's circumstance. So to have the time in your 20s building those amazing relationships with your girlfriend, then when you do find your significant girlfriends, then when you do find your significant others, like you just have that like base of support forever for a lifetime from your girlfriends.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that so much. It's so true. Like, you cannot lose yourself in abandoned friends, especially girlfriends, because they're the ones that get you through it, right? They're the ones that get you through all the tumultuous times until you meet the right one. And even then, you still need friends. You still need to do your own thing when you're in a relationship and have girl time and guy time and just have support, or, you know, just for whenever those hard times happen and things don't work out. Like, my mom always instilled in me, like, even when you have a boyfriend, make time for your friends. Do not lose your friendships, because if things don't work out with the guy, and then guess what? You have no friends. Like, you just never want your friends to, like, feel that way. And so it's really good advice, even when you're married, even if you find the one, like, you absolutely are always going to need friends. Like, it can never just be the one person. Like, that's not even healthy. And as a little morbid as this sounds, like, you don't know sometimes when that person's time is up when you're older. Like, if they pass before you, you definitely still need those relationships and support. And so I'm glad that you had that when your dad passed, and they were definitely there to, like, help you during that time. Like, that's how I feel. Like, I feel like in my life, I've met so many people, whether it was like high school, college, work, and I've built this really great network of support and friends that I have, and I feel so grateful. And that's why I wanted to, like, have a birthday party for myself, just, well, one, to celebrate me, because I feel like I never do, but two, like, I want all of my favorite people in one place at the same time. Like, I don't really know what that feels like, because I never had, like, a big, like, I've had birthday parties for myself, but it more so was when I was younger and, like, had it for family. But, like, really in like my 20s or even my teens, it's like I never just had, like, a big party with all of my friends. And it's, like, crazy that I'm talking about it now, like, why have I never had this? And it's like, it's time. Like, it's something that I have to do. And I feel grateful to have the support of, like, so many friends that I do have. And I feel like, for me, like, in this time of being single, I feel like a lot of it's been, like, starting over. It's, like, laying this foundation of, like, really figuring out, like, who I am. Like, so much has had to be stripped away, and I've really had to get to, like, the core of who I am, and, like, build a foundation within myself, build a home within myself. Like, I live on my own. Like, I'm independent. I have to support myself. I have a network of friends. I have my family. Like, there's so much that, like, I'm trying to do, so that, like, I never want to feel, like, not secure or unsettled the way that I did in my last relationship. Like, that will just not work again. So I really am trying to make sure that I do everything, I guess, not right this time, but, like, I'm very focused on building a foundation within me. Like, I want to be as strong as I am to attract another strong partner, because that's really the only way that a successful relationship is going to happen.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. I have a friend that recently got a divorce, and she has been wanting to find somebody, because her marriage wasn't good for a little while, but she's wanting to find somebody, like, right away, but she has to realize she needs to work on herself and make herself happy in her life and her career and just with everything. She's got her good girlfriends, obviously, because that's me and a couple other girls, but just, like, in her career, and she has to realize, make herself happy first before she could find somebody else.
Yeah, it's hard, like, to have that kind of time where it's easy to want to rebound, and you know, the things, and, like, I met her at the pool, and she just seems like so much fun and, like, great personality, but I did sense there was a struggle, I think, in terms of self-esteem a little bit, and it's definitely harder as you get older to be in the dating game and be divorced. I mean, I am 20 with, like, I would say not that much baggage, or I'm 28. In my 20s, I don't have that much baggage, and dating is hard enough, so it only gets more complicated as you get older. But I definitely sensed, just a little bit of internal work that she has to do, and it's really easier said than done. It gets easier within time. Like, I've been single for a little over 3 years now, but I know that it's not. How do I explain this? It's not like I feel, oh, I've been single for 3 years, now I should meet the one, that's enough time. Like, we never know when that time is going to come. Like, I still feel like there's things that I want to do before that happens, but we can never plan for it, right? Like, it's just going to happen when it's supposed to. And, like, something a friend told me too that I think is true is, while we need to be in a good place personally, we're never going to be a perfect version of ourselves when we meet that person. Like, we're always growing and evolving, and a lot of times the other person can help us grow and bring out good qualities in us, like you said Joe does with you too. You know, and it's like, you didn't know he was going to do that. And so I try to remind myself of that too. Like, you're not going to be this perfect version of yourself to meet the one. Like, they're going to also bring out good qualities in you. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, definitely.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You just have to be happy with yourself.
Yes.
And not mad about like how your life is going, because how are you gonna let somebody in if you're already mad about your life? Now it's going.
Absolutely. It's not going to attract the right person, that's for sure. Sorry, let me. So, something I wanted to ask you is, as I said, it's great when you meet the one and you have a successful relationship and you're happy in your marriage. Like, what, like, I guess my question is, what are the biggest challenges you face once you are married? Like, even if you find the right person, like, obviously disagreements happen, right? But, like, how do you get through it?
Biggest challenge. Well, right now I feel guilty of not being able to do enough around the house at home, because I work a lot of hours, and by the time I come home, he's maybe already been home for a while, but still almost like always on the clock. But he's already like maybe done the dishes and already done the grocery shopping, and then it's gonna start preparing for food for dinner, and then I come home and I still have notes to do and I still have laundry to do, so I'm not helping with those household activities, and I feel guilty. Maybe he's putting more into it than I am. Um, so I kind of feel bad, but he does it with a smile on his face. And when you say when you get married, there's that give and take. It's never ever 50-50. It might be 70-30. Sometimes, some years, sometimes in life, but you never know what's going to happen down the road. God forbid an accident happens and I have to take care of him for a while. You just never know. So he's definitely putting in the time and effort at our home life in terms of household activities, where I'm definitely putting in hours up at work to, try to build a good life for us too. That's one struggle I personally have.
Yeah. But I think that's really just balance in what you do in a marriage. Like, I think for you, it's more just personal in that, like, you want to be able to help more, but it's not like he knows that you're working late hours. Like, there's only so much you can do in a day, and so it's just he's home and he's happy to do it. And I'm sure if you were home, it would be the same way. It's not like other relationships where it's so uneven. It's like 10-90 or 20-80, where two people are working and one person is burdening all of the house stuff, or you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's just you wanting to be able to help more, but it's still balanced because he knows you're working hard. Like you said, you're trying to build a good life. Your hours are what they are. There's only so much in your control with that. And so, I don't know, like, it's just, again, it's a good example of just kind of what you do, like how you make it work, who needs to pick up where, how you can, maybe on weekends you do something more for Joe that, like, he takes care of during the week, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. He helps me to get all the housework done so that when I'm done with working and all my stuff, we can go out and have fun and enjoy that married life in the city.
Yeah, exactly. See, like, nobody's resentful of each other. He's like, I'll just take care of it and get it out of the way so that when we have our free time, it's spent enjoying each other's company and not nagging each other about who needs to do what, because who wants to do that?
Yeah,
like,
he never throws it in my face. He never makes me feel guilty. I do acknowledge and thank him, because I do say it out loud, and I am thankful for, thanks for taking the trash out, thanks for doing all the dishes, thanks for doing the grocery shopping and the cooking. So I definitely always acknowledge it. So.
That's awesome. See, that's a good partnership. And so, like, in an ideal world, of course, this is my fantasy world, but I'm perfectly fine cleaning, running errands, doing laundry, all of that stuff. The one thing that I ask if I were married, because again, there has to be the balance, everyone can't do everything, is if he can just cook. That is like my only request. Like, I will literally take care of everything else. I will not ask you for another thing. Just please, sir, cook for me, and I will be the happiest wife ever.
Yes, we hosted our first Christmas this year, and he did all the cooking. And at the end of the night, poor guy fell asleep on the couch right away after everybody left. I'm like, I'm just
Aw.
gonna let him sleep there, and I'll do all of the cleaning. So I washed all the dishes, cleaned everything, probably for like 4 hours,
Oh my
and I'm like,
gosh.
I'm actually happy with this. I'm sad
Yeah.
the holidays are over, and I'm happy that he can just go to sleep, and I'll do all the rest.
See, it's
And
balance.
I was
It's
like
give and
excited
take,
for him to be happy to wake up and like see everything like clean
right?
because he did a great job at cooking all the food for Christmas.
Exactly. See, that is literally like my ideal relationship, and the fact that I know it exists. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
would love to have that scenario. Like,
Mm-hmm.
please, sir, cook everything. I will even grocery shop. I will clean. Just cook it. So that's one less thing I have to do, right? Like, again, it's that partnership.
Yeah.
So,
And he's happy being like the male cook. He would say some of the best chefs are males. Some of
right.
the best chefs are gentlemen. So he likes cooking.
I love that.
They're out there.
That's awesome. Yes, I'm gonna manifest it.
And the longer those guys have to live on their own without a wife or a girlfriend, the longer they have to learn how to cook. So I think that's what happened in our scenario.
For sure. No, that's definitely good because you
Meet
don't
them
want
later
to
in life.
marry a man child. That's for sure, and
Correct.
that's definitely I'm not going down that road. But I will say it's interesting because I feel like the best relationships that I see that I guess are the most successful is when, how do I explain this? Because I don't want it to come off in like a sexist or very conservative way, but it's just more so when the man is willing to take the initiative and
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
help out. It's
Yeah.
like if everything falls on the woman, that's when I see a
Mhm.
lot of the resentment and the where it's not balanced. Like I've
Mhm.
seen that in relationships. Like again, being single, I'm an outsider, right?
Mhm.
So I see things differently, especially after my last relationship, where I did feel like I was doing, it was just not balanced in the way that
Mhm.
I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important for successful relationships and where the woman can really rely on the man. He takes the initiative.
Mhm.
He's a leader. You don't have to ask him to take the garbage out because when that nagging sets in, that's when it gets very
Totally.
tumultuous.
That's the only time where I feel some like fiery negative energy back and forth. Like if I ever say anything, I try to like bite my tongue if I want something to happen. Because eventually he'll probably do it anyways. But sometimes when I say something, then that's when I just feel like a little bit of backfire.
Yeah, for sure. Because that's definitely a hard lesson I had to learn is men do not like to be nagged for
Mhm.
anything.
Mhm.
As even if we want it done right now or in the way that we want it, like
Mhm.
it's sometimes you gotta pick and choose your battles. But
Mhm.
I just know, yeah, number one negative thing is when the nagging sets in
Mhm.
and when they give that pushback too, because
Mhm.
then they become resentful of it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
So if
yeah.
you find a good guy, you won't have to nag him or ask him to do anything. They'll just do it.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm
Eventually.
saying. Like, it's when they just take the initiative and they know what needs to be done and they do it. Again, no relationship's perfect. Disagreements are going to happen, but it should be few and far between.
Mhm.
Um, so, there's something else. Oh, one other thing I wanted to ask you. Like, I guess, because relationships are always evolving. So, it's like for the longest time, I'm sure that you were so intrigued and like focused on meeting the one and how it was going to happen and now that you're married, like what are, I guess, like the positive things that you now look forward to once you are in a relationship? Like because I feel like sometimes people, like when we are, and I felt this, you get comfortable, you get in a routine. So it's like for you, how, like what makes you like excited in your relationship? How do you kind of keep that like fire going?
Yeah, we do go out on dates together. We continue to go out. Like we were talking about one on one earlier. How Joe's an extrovert, but sometimes when we're just spending our weeknights together after a long day's work, just sitting on the couch, he's so quiet. I don't know if he's like mad at me, but no, it's not that he's mad at me. He's just recharging his battery. So we have our quiet times, but I like when we actually go out to a bar or restaurant or go on a date, and then he's got that fiery side of conversation flowing and just that we're out on a date once again. So that's awesome. And then I also like as a couple us meeting friends together. So you, for instance, when we just meet new people, when we're out at the pool, we have new conversations. We bring other people into our friend circle as a couple, which is also exciting as well. Because I would say we're both people persons.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's a good point. Like you said, it's finding those little things that makes it fun in a relationship because you have your kind of mundane, boring day to day. We got to go to work.
mm-hmm.
Someone's got to do the chores. Like that's just reality. But
Mm-hmm.
then when you're able to set aside time for a date night and make
Mm-hmm.
time for each other, even if it's once a week,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's enough to like if you're just giving some effort into it,
Mm-hmm.
especially being able to go out in the city, like that is actually the biggest one of the biggest pieces of advices I've heard for people that are in long-term relationships or married is that you have to keep dating your partner.
Yeah.
You have to flirt with them, you still have
Mm-hmm.
to make it exciting and
Mm-hmm.
like kind of not let the everyday settle in to the
Mm-hmm.
point where you just get so comfortable that
Mm-hmm.
nothing's exciting. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think for you guys it's great that you're both in the city and you make time to go out. You have date nights, you're meeting like you have your friends separately, but then you're
Mm-hmm.
meeting friends as a couple, which is
Mm-hmm.
also really great. It like
Mm-hmm.
adds that other dynamic into the relationship. So I think like this is all stuff I'm taking mental
Yeah.
notes of so
Yeah.
that in my next relationship,
Mm-hmm.
if and when that happens,
Mm-hmm.
I can be like, yeah, we need to make a point to do this. Like, it's important.
Yeah, I'll see a different side to Joe. Like us sitting on the couch at home watching TV together, or even us just having dinner at home together, is so different than Joe going out to dinner together, us sitting together while we're out together. It's like a completely different person. Neither one is bad, but he's just so more talkative and vibrant when we're out together on our quote unquote date night
Yeah.
together. So I think it is important. We've been married for 2 years and we're still going out on date nights. And we don't have kids in either place. We don't have kids when we go out. We don't have kids when we are home. But going out, Joe, is different. And I just get a lot of more conversation out of him when we're out together. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Do you feel like that's the Joe that you met when you guys like first started dating?
Yeah, yeah. And not that at home Joe's a bad thing, but you're right. Like you just kind of recharge your battery when you're sitting at home. Sometimes if you've been at work and we both have jobs that we talk to people all day long, so I think we feed off the city energy and we feed off other people's energy, and that brings us energy. So when we're out and about, we're just more lively people.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself an extrovert? Because I know he is, but or would you say you're more introverted?
I would say extrovert. Yeah,
Really? Yeah.
I can stay out all night with like friends or out on the dance floor, and I like being around all that energy and people. But when I'm home, I like to just chill and watch a good movie and stuff. But if I had a choice, I'd probably go out and have fun with friends and family and people
Yeah.
versus sit home on a Saturday night. I'd feel guilty sitting home on Saturday night if we don't have kids.
Do you like think that like being around people like recharges you? Like even if you've had a long day, like it
Mm-hmm.
just helps to recharge your batteries to
Yeah.
be able to go out. I could see that.
Yeah.
I think that's like a good balance for you both because like see I wonder like because I'm introverted like I can be super social and like be a chameleon and have a good time but there are moments where if I'm not vibing with the people I'm with or I'm not enjoying my
Mm-hmm.
surroundings or it's too much, like it's just not a
Mm-hmm.
good time for me.
Yeah.
Like I kind of
Yeah.
retreat or I want to go or like this whole week that I've had off work, I've actually enjoyed just being home and
Yeah.
like being with myself and having
Mm-hmm.
my like I've needed to recharge my social batteries.
Mm-hmm.
So inherently I am an introvert. I am
Mm-hmm.
able to recharge better
Mm-hmm.
having solitude and peace at home. So I wonder if like I should end up with an introvert or an extrovert because I'm like, do I want the yin and yang energy where someone can kind of bring me out of my shell more, or do I need someone that's a little bit more like me, where when we want to go home, we're both just like, okay, I'm good, you know, like.
Yeah.
I just wonder which dynamic is better. I
Yeah.
don't think one is necessarily better than the other because in my last relationship, Tim was an extrovert. Like, oh my God, like anywhere we went, whether it was the cashier at the grocery store, a person in the elevator, he always had to talk to them. Like, he was someone that literally gained energy from interaction, and I was the opposite. So, like, if we were out on date night, like, he'd always be talking to strangers, and I'd get frustrated. Like,
Wow.
you're not like spending quality time with me. Like, you could just be out doing this on your own. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
that was very frustrating for me. and again, it's like Tim is his own person, so it's not like every extrovert is that way, but it was frustrating. So it makes me just wonder if like I need to be with someone that's a little bit more on the introverted side.
Or maybe I'm the middle ground, because I also feel like maybe I'm in the middle ground. After what you just said, I'm like, oh, that sounds lovely if I would be able to do that. Sit at home, recharge your battery, just hang out during the week. So I'm sure you can find somebody in the middle, because that's kind of what I talked about. Like Joe is, somewhere in the middle where during the weeknights we don't go out during the week until the weekend comes around. We're ready to go and have fun. So
I know. I just
yeah.
am like, I think two extroverts are probably good together. Two introverts are probably good together, but then it's like, is two introverts too much of a homebody? Like, I don't know. Like, where's the balance? So, I'm not gonna think too much about it. I will meet the right person, and
it's
we'll
all
see.
about the chemistry,
Yeah,
too.
right.
I don't know if I'd consider either one of us like I don't feel like we're one extreme or the other. I feel like we're somewhere in the middle.
Right.
So
yeah, and that's absolutely what I need too. Like if someone's extroverted, like I would probably enjoy that because they might be a little bit more of the initiator and again like bring me out of my shell. But I need them to be able to like reel it in a little bit and like meet me halfway.
Yeah.
Like that's actually like now that I'm talking about it, my mom and her boyfriend. So my mom leans more introverted, right? Like introverts are still social, but she gets to a point where she needs a day at home to decompress and she reaches her social battery, and so she like he knows like when my mom gets to a certain point at the end of the night, she just wants to like go home and eat a meal and be comfy and she's ready to call it a night, where Mark can probably like he is such an extrovert, he could stay out and party all the time, but he knows like it's like they have their fun social time, but he understands that when like it's when my mom's social battery like is drained and her time is up, like he's willing to accommodate and like, all right, let's leave, let's get food, like it's good. So again, it can be that balance, whether one's introverted and one's extroverted. It's just knowing like how to accommodate each other.
Yep, I had a good friend like that where she'd be like done for the night and I feel like I'd still be ready to like spend another night or another hour or two out, but I'd be like, let's go back and have food and chill out and just talk, and I was cool with that. So
yeah, that's good. That's a good friend.
yeah.
So it all comes down to balance. But definitely, I'm like, as we've been talking throughout this whole episode, I'm taking notes. So I guess my last question for you is just, what advice do you have for all of us single people out there?
Enjoy the time that you have with your friends and family. And like we said, it'll happen when you're not least expecting it, but when are you not expecting it? So don't focus all your energy on it, but also be open and vulnerable too, and open to, you never know who's going to walk into your life, and who you end up with might not be who you think you end up with. So just be open to lots of different people in your life, because you don't know who you're going to vibe with, you don't know who's going to treat you like a princess, and then you realize, wow, I really need this man in my life to treat me like a princess.
Yeah, so, I love that. It's true, definitely. Staying open, right? Staying open-minded and vulnerable. I feel like the theme of this episode is balance, because that's what relationships are. That's why there's the masculine and the feminine and the yin and yang. It's so much about balance. Extrovert versus introvert. Enjoying being single while still being open-minded to meeting the one and what that might look like. So I think it's definitely all great advice, and I have seen that, like, I guess play out for you in a sense. Like, I trust your advice, and we have share similar experiences in terms of life stages. So again, it gives me hope. Like, I don't feel bad that I'm going to be 29 and I'm single. Like, this is where I know I'm supposed to be in my life. And for me, it's like, I would rather meet the right person between 30 and 35 than be divorced at 40 and have to like have kids and start over at that point. Like, I'm willing to be patient. So I know that in the end, it makes it better and it works out more favorably in that way. So again, I just am so grateful that I met you and Joe. You're lovely people, just great humans, and you've given me a really positive relationship to be around and interact with and hope to have and emulate one day. So thank you so much for being on.
You're
It
the
was super
cutest.
fun. I hope everyone enjoys this episode, and definitely, I think there's great things you can take away from it, whether you're in a relationship or being single, and just know that it can happen. Even if it's not now, there are successful relationships and happy marriages, and the fairy tale ending that everyone hopes for. So, I wish all of you a great 2023. I'm happy to kick off this year with this episode, and we will see you around next time.